What would the OLS be without getting a game out of Gavone? All right, let's go. Or otherwise known as the Chad. So this time we got the Chad going up against none other than WhatAmI. So good to have WhatAmI participating again, a usual actually competitor in the OLS. Apparently, I went and did some research. WhatAmI actually, because he went by another name previously. I was unaware of this. Has won like 3 of the OLSs back when they were really small in the early days, but still getting a lot of tournament wins under his belt. So let's go ahead and see who is able to advance to 3-0. Gavone versus WhatAmI, round 3 of OLS number 13. Next up, we are going to be watching Gavone versus WhatAmI here in round 3 of the OLS number 13 we're on now. Wow, we're almost at as many OLSs as there were duels of Runeterra.
Yeah, duels of Runeterra takes breaks. OLS does not. They took 1 week off, and it was for the 4th of July.
Oh, wow, okay. And it looks like we are getting into the game, so let's head on over. Gavone versus WhatAmI. No breaks, no days off, baby. That's how we roll.
So Gavone ran this triple Feel the Rush lineup in Duels of Runeterra 17, and the one deck that he played that I think overperformed both in his expectations and ours when we got to watch him was this Swain Sejuani, and he has brought it back here for the OLS where he is only allowed to run 1 Feel the Rush deck, and he's just kind of workshopping this one and trying to figure out if this is a, sort of his breakthrough deck into the meta, because he's never been a pure meta player. He's always someone that, was doing some weirder stuff. And, maybe the Swain Sejuani is going to be able to beat out the other Field of Rush decks we had talked about in that inaugural tournament. How Sejuani feels really good in the mirror because you still get this 10-10 overwhelm. It doesn't have to level like Trundle does, and it's a good defensive tool against opposing Field of Rushes.
Yeah, we'll see how this deck performs. We have 3 Death's Hands starting out here, and actually works out pretty good to get rid of this Crusty Codger, especially with an early Star Spring. I mean, that's always kind of scary to see your opponent get a Star Spring that early when, that's just that much earlier that we could potentially see that win condition be a problem. And honestly, I mean, looking at the deck list of Gavone, there's nothing in here that gets rid of landmarks, right?
No, but that is a really juicy Culling Strike onto the Soraka that it looks like he is not going to take. Says, you know what, Tahm Kench is actually a little bit of a bigger threat, and now finds Reckoning the turn. It'll actually be a really nice curve for that Tarkaz the Tribeless.
Yeah, I love, so like you mentioned, he brought this another week as well, and I love seeing Tarkaz in this deck. I love that card in general. I think when the game was in closed beta, I was determined to make that card good, and alas, 3 sets later, it's still not good.
Whoa, it saw play in early versions of Ramp Soul.
It's okay. It's not the highest play rate card is what I'm getting at. And
definitely not.
So it's cool to see it in this deck, and I do think it finds a pretty good spot in this deck too. It's just a big, beefy unit, and like you said, there's just a lot of big, scary options in this deck for the late game. So we'll see if we're able to get some of those down and avoid this Star Spring win condition, because that is very much a clock for Gavone right now.
Yeah, but there's no way that WhatAmI is going to be able to play around this Reckoning. It's just going to eat however much of the board Gavone wants it to, but he's actually not going to set up for it. It says you only have 1 unit on board currently. At worst, you get out another one this turn. My Reckoning is still a few turns off of actually getting played, so instead we're going to play a little bit more to our top decks and throw out a Catalyst of Aeons.
And I like this. I think you get way more value out of the Catalyst than you do of getting the Tarkaz down early. Sure, it's a little bit of a loss in tempo, but over the next 3 turns, 3 or 4 turns from now is really when you want to start to try to push to win the game anyways, and that's when you're really going to have that mana advantage to your advantage over your opponent. So going to be good to see how many big units Gavone gets down here over the next couple of turns, because I think we just go balls to the wall. I think we just keep putting units on the board. Our opponent can continue to put down whatever they want, but guess what? Reckoning is eventually going to come down.
This is really, really bad for Gavone, though. There is the second Guiding Touch in the hand of WhatAmI, which does mean that, 5 damage going to get pushed down onto this Broadback, immediately going to get healed back up by this Raka. And a second Star Spring even comes down. Now, if WhatAmI goes for some kind of developmental attack, has a lot of opportunity to actually get blown out by this Reckoning. You really need this Raka to get this 6 HP back onto the Broadback Protector. Or sorry, 3 HP. I didn't think didn't realize how the ordering was going to work there.
Yeah, so this is bad. This is what I was worried about from the beginning, right?
Ooh,
having this Star
This
Spring.
is it, though. We went for the
wow.
Crusty Codger, and we get the Reckoning.
All right, so listen, this is a good Reckoning. This is probably one of the best Reckonings that we've seen in a while.
Yeah.
But how does Gavone, like, I don't know if Gavone can really win outside of these Star Springs here. Like, we can't summon anything else this turn. We have to get more units down, and we just can't do it fast enough.
Yeah, I mean, we are in the territory of being able to get down the Swain Leviathan combo and sort of hope that is enough. And, you know, WhatAmI does have to find ways to damage his units. He's already down 2 Sorakas, and there, you know, could be enough on the side of Gavone to make sure that this Tahm Kench doesn't get to run away with the game. Oh, he's just going to straight up throw down the Leviathan.
Oh.
Astral Protection, I think, ends the game for WhatAmI. I think that is just a total victory on their side. It's going to let you eat the Leviathan. You'll get to eat the Sejuani on the following turn. Make sure that Gavone is never able to set up the aggressive combos that his deck needs to get down. And I think you have to throw out this Death's Hand in response, because otherwise the Astral Protection is going to heal the Tahm Kench on top of it. Whereas if you throw it down in response, they're going to be missing out on a little bit of HP. Yes, the Star Springs will tick those up over the course of the game, but I do think this is the proper way to play the stack. Yeah, no, 100%.
You want to avoid that extra heal on there. And Astral Protection, so stinking good in this deck. And I agree, right? If you ever get if you get 2 Astral Protections on something like a Tahm Kench, it's just so ridiculously hard to actually ever remove the Tahm Kench at that point that I just, wow.
And it
works. Okay. Wow. That, I was not expecting WhatAmI to have 0 response unless there's another Tahm Kench randomly in hand, and maybe we're going for that. But
even then, I don't know that you're necessarily in a position where you could afford to lose that. And I mean, if he does have another Tahm Kench, that means that WhatAmI saw 2 Tahm Kench, 2 Soraka with very little draw power. Yeah, maybe you don't win games like that.
So the Broadback Protector there basically just negates the Leviathan.
That is a rush off the top. That should be lethal unless we know WhatAmI doesn't have Astral Protection. Right, it probably would have come down last turn, which means he is very far away from getting the healing necessary to actually turn these Star Springs into win conditions. And now with Swain Sejuani on field, Feel the Rush representing 2 additional copies of those champions. And I think that's something that people don't really think about with Feel the Rush, is it is another way to get multiple copies of certain champions onto the field. We talk about that a lot with Lux. And I'm a little curious to see if, like, Feel the Rush Lux is going to turn into something where you get these double lasers and, you know, Feel the Rush gives you a Lux laser immediately. You know, flirting with the idea.
Listen, that sounds amazing, but it also sounds like impossible to sell.
Probably not going to happen.
I wish. I really wish.
At this point, though, I have to think that this is just over for WhatAmI. No matter what you play here, your board is going to get stunned by this Leviathan Swain combo. There's so much overwhelmed damage coming at you. Yeah, Pablo's not going to be enough. And with the highest Star Spring only at 9 out of 22, there's nothing you could have drawn off that Guiding Touch that is going to get you back into this. And this should actually just be Gavone picking this one up. That Reckoning.
That was crazy.
You know, this card that he just throws into every Freljord deck available to him comes up massive in this matchup.
Well, and this is why I was harping on this Breakfast at Tiffany's deck earlier. This deck is so bad versus anything that plays on that 3 attack, right? Like, you have Reckoning, destroys the whole board of the deck. You have Fearsome decks, basically null anything as a blocker. Like, this deck just has so many glaring weaknesses that I really am just not loving the deck. And that is a Sheriff Lariat Rose.
And that is not great for Gavone, who sort of tapped out of options to deal with that and damaged his own champions enough that the Sheriff is just going to get to kill the Swain.
What? Is this... Hold on. Back up. Is this one of those cards that we just glanced over? Not... Yep. There is 2 of it.
Yeah.
There is 2 of this card in WhatAmi's deck. Man, wow. I mean, it's getting work done now. And maybe it is specifically for situations like this where it's able to pick off something like a Swain. But, I mean, that's 6 attack. Swain generally is outside of 6 health. And the Leviathan's usually at 8 health. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. This seems like a very
I
rare
definitely
instance.
think you throw out this Death Lotus here. Your opponent is only at 1 HP. You don't really
Yeah.
want to give them a unit that is, 4 damage pushed onto it. That's not a Ravenous Flock. That is a Swain in hand. So once this Swain dies, you're not going to be able to do that. You will just be able to redevelop the Swain on the following turn.
Well,
And I don't think there's any downside to throwing out the Death Lotus.
well, do you do Death Lotus or do you Ravenous Flock on the Broadback
Well,
Protector?
I think he's actually more considering the Field Rush on the following turn. So that is a reason to go ahead and hold back this Death Lotus. And it's a matter of, am I going to lose to these Star Springs? The answer is no. But your opponent is going to have a fearsome blocker for that Swain, which is a little unfortunate. It looks like he has decided that Feel the Rush is the way that he wants to try and end this game. Star Spring up to 15. Not going to end the game on the next turn, but we are going to see... Oh, actually, I think Sejuani leveled on the first... If she Frostbites the board here, there's no fearsome blocker.
Wow. Yeah, no, that is... Yeah, that's got to be game. I can't think of anything that's going to prevent WhatAmI from taking... I mean, worst case, we end the turn and then the 3 damage for Leviathan. Wait, Star Spring is round start?
Yes. Round end? Round end.
Round end. Okay, I think that's exactly what Gavone was thinking. And wow, okay. So Gavone going to take it versus the Breakfast at Tiffany's deck there. And up 1-0 versus WhatAmI. Yeah, God, that's all I needed was for Star Spring to be a round start effect. And then we're sitting here trying to figure out what happens first, Leviathan or Star Spring. We don't know.
Or Broadback Protector.
Or Broadback Protector. Too many round start things. I think they should eventually make some sort of stack-like thing for round start and round end effects. I just don't know how they would do it.
I don't think they're going to, just because it's a lot to visualize in what should be pretty quick succession. You don't want your opponent, you don't want your players sitting there not doing anything for 45 seconds while they watch the round start stack build up and resolve.
I mean, there's probably a subtle way to do it, right? That's what I'm saying. You'd really have to think of a good design way, because the way the game is built, it looks great and it communicates everything easily. Like the eye is brilliant, right? But I don't know how they do that. But it seems like round start and round end effects are always a topic of discussion in a lot of games.
Especially in this chat.
Oh, yeah, especially in this chat. But we got Deep up next versus Rockatom, and pretty good start here. It looks like we are, based on this hand, going to go deep pretty fast. And more importantly, already have the Maokai, and I think that Maokai might be a decent win condition here. The other thing to take into consideration, if we do get Nautilus on turn 7, well, as I mentioned before, not a whole ton of fearsome blockers in the Rockatom deck. There are 2 Sheriff Lariat Roses in the deck, which we now are aware of. But, yeah, so that might be just a clean 13 damage that ends up coming through as well.
That said, though, I mean, there is a Jettison salvage start on the side of Gavone. Yeah. This Maokai win condition going to be very much online very quickly here. And outside of the Sheriff or Boxtopus in conjunction with exactly Pale Cascade, there's no great answer for the Maokai on the side of WhatAmI.
Okay, I'm not going to lie. I don't... This hand feels amazing. This hand, not only do we have salvage for draw, but now we also have Stalking Shadows as a 2-of, which means we're going to have a lot of units. And ultimately, Stalking Shadow technically gets you closer to deep as well. And we also have...
with that Deadbloom Wanderer.
Yeah, we're going deep. Can we get deep on turn 5 here? Let's do it. Let's do it. Deep on turn 5. We got this.
I mean, the other question is, WhatAmI did open Star Spring. He did open Double Codger. And it looks like Gavone is actually going to go for the ephemeral Deadbloom Wanderer. Okay, gonna pull that one back, saying, you know what, on your attack turn, you can either pass and let me have this, or you can attack one of your units into this thing that is going to kill it. I mean, this is an insane opener for both players. I'm just worried that because Star Spring comes online so early, that this is going to favor WhatAmI.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. So at the end of the day, we go back to, and this was what I was concerned with in the first match, although Gavone proved us wrong there, there's no way to remove this Star Spring. And there are, generally speaking, there's a lot of decks that aren't really playing landmark removal.
I really wanted to get the Maokai down. I think that WhatAmI is fine to just pass here. Oh, actually already has a leveled Soraka, not quite on curve, but just shy of it. And that's really going to accelerate the pace of the deck, constantly drawing a card at every single round round end when this Star Spring goes off.
But Maokai does the same thing for Gavone, also accelerates the deck. So I guess I'm kind of curious now, does the Soraka engine better benefit The Star Spring deck or this Maokai?
Boxtopus is the one thing that you did
Oh
not
my
want to
God.
see. There's probably a Pale Cascade alongside that, and outside of Sheriff Lariat Rose, that is the only thing that could actually kill your Maokai on 4. You're going to have a couple of blockers here, but with all of WhatAmi's units being at full HP, that sapling is more of a detriment than a helper, as it is going to just soften things up to get healed back up by the Star Spring, continue to accelerate the game plan of WhatAmi, who honestly might just go in for a full-on attack here and say, go ahead, I would love it if you were to block me here.
Yeah, and there's the Pale Cascade, like you mentioned. This feels really bad. Honestly, great hand for Gavone. Great hand. Better hand for WhatAmI. Just easily one of the best Rockatom starts I've seen. Like you said, that Soraka coming down on turn 4 leveled is pretty nuts. And having everything self-damaging drawn in that first hand alongside the Star Spring basically makes it just inevitable that you end up winning this game here. And it looks like we will end up with 2 units that will be able to get healed. So that's going to be 2 more towards this win condition.
Is it going to heal Boxtopus, or are the stats going to disappear first? We'll find out here. It looks like it actually does heal it before the stats go away. So that is how things would work in a normal card game. You have round end priority sequences, and then stat changes go away in the cleanup phase. Mm-hmm. So that is kind of how you would expect that sort of interaction to go.
Wait, you mean something happened as we would expect it to happen? Wow. I feel like generally that's not the case.
Yeah, and Gavone, now looking at the Passage Unearned, he is running 3 copies of it in this deep deck, and WhatAmI has not brought Feel the Rush. So we have, I know you don't like this card, but we still haven't seen it against Feel the Rush.
It's bad.
Tell me that when the first time you see it against Feel the Rush, if it loses the game still because they just never play the FTR, then you can tell me it's bad.
Listen,
I'll concede that one to you.
If we actually see Passage Unearned played against Feel the Rush and they still lose, I will actually never touch the card in my life. Like, that's bad. Now, if they just don't draw it, I mean, that just kind of is a feel bad man moment, but we do get the power.
I was thinking more along the lines of like FTR just never plays Feel the Rush.
There's that,
just wins the game through it anyway through Trundles and Tryndamirs, because you are still a ramp deck with big champions.
Yeah, there is that, right? I mean, there is a way to win without Feel the Rush, but yeah, like you said, WhatAmI not bringing it?
The one good thing that the Gavone does have going for him is that all of the units on WhatAmi's field are now full HP.
Yeah. Not anymore.
And there's a third Crusty Codger.
Literally drew everything self-damaging. And unfortunately...
But you get down Nautilus next turn.
Well, here's the problem. If you attack with this Devourer, WhatAmI blocks with Soraka and has the chance to have a Pale Cascade and basically just wins the game on an open attack.
Yeah, and... I wouldn't have blamed Gavone necessarily for going for it, because it would have had to have been the 3rd Pale Cascade, as we did see 2 on the earlier turn. Hired Gun going to come down, but you're not really worried about your opponent threatening lethal through combat damage. But, this Crusty Codger, while it doesn't represent a whole lot for the Star Spring, does just represent more additional draws at the round end ability for the Soraka. And now, what do you play here? I mean, Nautilus, a very effective blocker. I don't think that WhatAmI could have enough to get a Soraka through that one. But WhatAmI also doesn't need to attack.
Yeah, actually, you would need 2 Astral Protections to actually have this Raka live through an attack and the Nautilus block, and I highly doubt that's going to happen.
So something that we could see as well is WhatAmI is running 3 copies of Hush. So something that he could do is declare an attack onto... Actually, I'm kind of curious about how this works. You attack the Devourer of the Depths with Soraka, right? Mm-hmm. You have not locked in combat yet. You hush the Devourer of the Depths. Mm-hmm. It no longer has vulnerable.
Okay.
Does it immediately go to the back line? Or am I able to still, challenge it, so to say? And if I then pull my Soraka to the back line, I would not be able to re-challenge that unit. Like, that feels
That's
weird
interesting.
To me.
That's interesting, because you're pulling it before you're submitting the attack through.
Yeah.
And technically, if you play the Hush, it shouldn't be able to be pulled.
It's similar to how we see players transfusion when they're declaring blockers and then remember that it's burst speed and it kills the blocker before you can actually declare them. But that Astral Protection is going to be Star Spring, not Astral Protection. That was actually a Soraka spell, giving the Star Spring victory over to WhatAmI. Gavone if he had been able to hang on to the Maokai, maybe we would have been looking at a different game. But, well navigated on the side of WhatAmI, who honestly had a monster of an opener as well. And now we get to see game number 3. WhatAmI, what have you brought for us here in the last game?
Yeah, I'm actually curious to see what was banned out. It's either going to be Fiora Shen or Ashe, and it looks like Fiora Shen was banned. We're going to get another mid-range Frostbite deck, and yeah, this is actually a really hard matchup for WhatAmI. We've seen so many mid-range Frostbite versus deep matchups. Generally speaking, mid-range Frostbite has that window to really be the aggressor just before the deep deck actually goes deep around turn 7 or 8. There is also that possibility for something like an Ashe OTK and or Captain Farron a little bit later in the game, but no Captain Farron in the deck of WhatAmI. And yeah, I mean, I think that might actually at the end of the day really hurt WhatAmI in this particular matchup.
There are a couple of things that WhatAmI can do to sort of blow the matchup wide open. Early Reckoning onto wide boards developed by Gavone is one of them. Another one, Iceveil Archer into Culling Strike on a Nautilus the turn it is played is a massive tempo swing, or as you had mentioned, an Ashe OTK. But those don't happen every game. And in the games that they don't happen, Gavone is going to feel pretty favored.
Yeah, I feel like, generally speaking, too, Reckoning is one of those cards that you can play around pretty easily, similar to like a Ruination. So I don't think Gavone's going to be too worried about the Reckoning. It's really just going to be the early aggression, which honestly, there's nothing that's hit the field so far from WhatAmI, which feels really bad. Okay, that's a start. But as long as we can get rid of the early aggression and we're able to play around Reckoning, we should have a pretty easy path to deep on turn 7. So I got to give the favoritism here to Gavone. Plenty of ways to go deep, too. We already got 2 Thorny Toads. So early aggression, I think, is off the table.
Not only that, but Gavone does have Ruination and isn't running some of the anti-aggro tools that are typically dead in this matchup. There's no Withering Wails. There's no Grasp of the Undying. It's Vengeances and Ruinations. Hard removal. Troll Chant is not going to do what it normally does. And while the second half of Troll Chant is great for combat, it doesn't actually do anything against Devourer of the Depths. It is essentially an Elixir of Iron in that function.
Yeah, and it feels really bad putting 1 damage onto Rhymefang Wolf. Granted, there's no like Vile Feasts or anything like that. Unspeakable Horror in Deep generally ran anymore, so I don't think he's really worried about the Rhymefang dying to something like that. But basically that entire attack turn just shut down. Now we're going on turn 5, where WhatAmI should generally on turn 5 have a decent drop, a Hearthguard, maybe even an Ashe on this turn. But it's just... it's not looking too hot.
I love the cheer for the tossed Passage Unearned.
Yeah, he has hovered it so many times and shaken his head. It's ridiculous. See, even he thinks it's bad, and he put it in the freaking deck.
Look, man, it is what it is.
He's regretting it. It's round 3, and he's already regretting it. So I guess the hope for Gavone is that he makes it to finals, and then in finals his opponent runs Field of Rush. As long as that's the case, then we're golden.
Oh, man, and he is going to go deep this turn if he goes for the Dreg Dredgers. And, yeah, he's got him. He can just run both of those out this turn.
Yeah.
And that's going to put him at deep here on turn
5.
Turn 5.
That's actually the fastest you could go deep possible.
And the Thorny Toads haven't even died yet.
Nope. That's insane. Just do it. Come on. Just do it to say you did it.
Ooh.
Just do it.
I don't love the round end because it does make your Devourer a lot weaker. Sure, you would expect WhatAmI to go for an attack here. Ooh, the Maokai picked up.
Man, I really wanted to just see him go deep on 5. That's unfortunate. Well,
yeah, see, this is the situation that you run into by not actually running that unit out on the previous turn, is now your Devourer is going to get stopped by something like a Troll Chant, whereas, previously you just have a guaranteed kill onto the Ashe.
Yeah, he is realizing that right now. And unfortunately, because of that, doesn't really have the greatest play right now.
And it did feel weird to me that we're holding spell mana in a hand with literally no spells. Yeah. Granted, it would have felt a little weird, and especially tempo-wise, to throw down this ephemeral unit on your attack turn after you've already attacked, things like that. But, it does actually throw down the Dead Bloom Wanderer. This Maokai, not as close as you would expect it to be for how much tossing we've been doing, though, how quickly we got deep here.
Which one gets frostbitten? Is it the one on the right?
You can always hover the eye to find out. It looks like it will actually be, the newest one.
I think it's... Wait, can you change the order by doing that? I wonder if you can. Hover the eye
You
again.
might be. I know that Gavone has been talking to me a lot this week about his recent discovery.
Okay.
Yeah, that whatever is to the left is going to get interacted with, and then you can go ahead and like
You can rearrange your
abilities.
units.
I think that someone in chat for Fight Night yesterday though had mentioned that it's always going to be the unit that was played most recently, and you will never be able to hit Golden Sisters with Ashe because it will always hit Silver Sisters.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah,
because it was the last one to enter the
field.
field.
No, it makes sense. Yep, yeah, we really do need a rule book. At this point, I feel like these are all just rules that we've all remembered in our head by now. So, but it looks like we are going to get the full attack from WhatAmI. Now, it's basically all just going to be stuffed here because we already had plenty of defenders on the field of Gavone. Unfortunately, like you said, not able to get that Devourer down. But at least now we can go into the next turn with 3 spell mana. Not sure that matters. Again, like you said, no spells in hand. So a little bit unfortunate of the ordering that Gavone's played the last couple of turns here, still not getting the Devourer down. Because if that was the case, we would essentially have been able to already have a Devourer on the field and be able to play this Abyssal Eye or even the Nautilus next turn.
And it looks like that was the Maokai level up, though, off of that last unit dying. Unfortunately, does draw the passage under it. Is Maokai level? Generally, they have a gold border if you're going to play them leveled. I could have sworn that the arrows and the way that they lined up meant that it was leveled. I'll have to wait for Gavone to actually hover it. Okay, yeah, it is at exactly 25 out of 25. And you're not even necessarily afraid of Reckoning here, just because it is a very large mana commitment, but also clears a large amount of the board from WhatAmI, and you're not really having lethal represented at you at that point, so he's going to feel pretty good about his position. I think what he's realizing now is if there is another copy of Ashe in WhatAmI's hand, the Maokai win condition is not realistic.
Yeah, because then you're at the point where you are going to get this Ashe OTK, which we mentioned earlier. So, sure, does Gavone feel pretty comfortable that, okay, this game is now on a clock, there's going to be 2 attack turns left for WhatAmI, but it's very possible that we get large Frostbite turns with this leveled Ashe, or when it does eventually level. Yeah, and it's looking like that's the case.
We are going for sort of a turbo level, let me get the Harsh Winds OTK and a large Fry on the following turn.
Yeah, this isn't good. This is not good. I think we might even have a Harsh Winds here. And
well, you would need it on the next turn, on your attack turn.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So I feel like we're going to go into an open attack with a Harsh Winds, and that's just going to be game.
That does seem to be the case, and yeah, there's nothing that Gavone can do about this. Didn't find any vengeance, or is it just like Flash Raise Biddle still? I mean, if you have to do this sort of the cobbled together way with duct tape and spare parts, yeah, you have to do it. It's not quite Harsh Winds, but it is still a victory. It's not quite clean, but yeah, WhatAmI going to be able to maintain his board? I mean, this Rhyme thing sat on board the entire game, and as you had mentioned, yeah, you don't really love this Maokai win con, but if you don't have the board, it doesn't feel nearly as impactful.
Yeah, wow, that's really unfortunate for Gavone there. It seemed like he had that all wrapped up. He got deep super, super fast, but like we mentioned, if your opponent going against the deep deck is able to structure together that OTK turn before you really get that deep development on board, you're going to lose. And that's exactly what we see there. And Gavone going to go to 2-1 now. All right, and WhatAmI going to go ahead and take it there. Good stuff. Going 3-0. We'll see if WhatAmI is able to make another top cut and yet another run at first place of an OLS. So as always, everybody, stay healthy, stay positive. I hope it just works for you, and peace out.